got this passion, and it's burning deep inside of me.
Yo guys, what is up? As here once again. Today I wanted to go over the buffs and debuffs in the game. There are several types of buffs and debuffs, and I tried to categorize them logically. First of all, we need to make a difference between champion stats and battle stats. Champion stats are the stats that you see when you click on the eye icon in your champion overview. These will include all artifact sets, as well as your masteries and arena. Yes, your current arena rating will factor into this. Now let's talk about battle stats. These will include auras from champions as well as buffs and debuffs. With that out of the way, let's go over the first couple sets of debuffs. Increase and decrease stat type buffs. All these buffs have a small and a big version, with the smaller version usually found on rares and below. In addition, they are also based on your battle statistics. They also negate each other when they are the same strength. So 50% decrease and 50% increase will result in a 0 gain loss. 25% decrease and 50% increase will be a 25% gain and vice versa. The bigger version will override the smaller version if applied. This applies to all the buffs we talk about in this section. Increase and decrease attack affect your battle attack stat. For both of them we have a 25 and a 50% version. Increase and decrease defense affect your battle defense. Here we have a 30% and 60% version. Increase and decrease speed affect your battle speed stat. The small version is 15% and the big one 30%. Strengthen and weaken influence the received damage. While strengthen decreases the damage taken, weaken increases it. The amounts here are 15 and 25%. The next buffs in this category are the crit damage and crit rate modifiers. They increase or decrease their respective stat by 15% or 30% depending on the version. The last set which conforms to the previously mentioned rules are the accuracy modifiers. They will increase or decrease your accuracy battle stat by either 25 or 50%. Currently the only champion with this buff is Stag Knight. Now let's go about survivability buffs and debuffs. Continuous heal will heal the targeted champion by X% of their max HP at the beginning of their turn. There is a small and big version for this available. Continuous heals will not replace each other, but rather stack on top of each other. You can have small and big versions on the same champion at the same time. Heal reduction will reduce any healing received by the targeted champion. Similar to the buffs and debuffs in the previous section, the smaller version will be overwritten by the bigger version once applied. Here we have block damage, unkillable, revive on death, and leech. First let's address block damage and unkillable. On the surface these buffs are very similar in terms that they will allow your champion to survive any damage until the buff disappears. This is regardless if the damage comes from direct sources or passive sources like poison or HP burn. The big difference here is in their use case. Block damage simply negates all forms of damage targeted at your champion's HP. There are however skills in the game like Lua's A3 Lucky Shot, which ignore block damage buffs completely. Unkillable prevents your HP from going below 1 HP for the duration. This will allow you to make use of effects that trigger when you go below an HP threshold. Umbral Enchantress's A1 is an example of this. She would deal the most damage when her HP is at 1. Our next buff is Revive on Death. There are advantages and disadvantages for this buff. The main advantage is that the caster itself can be affected by it. Revive can only be cast on other champions, as you know. In addition, once cast, it doesn't take another turn away from the caster. This buff can also be extended. However, it can also be removed or blocked, which can't happen with a typical revive skill outside of the target being not able to be revived, of course. Lastly, we have Leech. While typical Life Leech only applies to the attacker with the artifact, skill or mastery, Leech can benefit your whole team. With the buff in 1.14, Leech has been increased from 10% to 18%. This made it a strong contester for Life Leech sets, depending on your team. Here we have 3 more buffs in this category, namely Shield, Ally Protection, and Veils. Let's go over shields first. Shields protect your HP bar. Damage will apply to the shield first until depleted or the buff expires. This doesn't count as damage to the champion, which makes Life Leech not benefit from it. Other effects like Lure's A1 will deal 0 damage on their secondary effect. Ally Protection shares direct damage between the caster and the beneficiary. This damage will be mitigated by each individual's defense, which allows you to build strong defense on the caster and help your team's survival. However, you need to be careful not to overwhelm the caster. If the caster shares damage with the whole team, he could easily die. Veils protect your team in several ways. First, they become untargetable, and secondly, since patch 1.14, it also decreases damage from AoE skills. This makes it very potent as a single target damage mitigator, as well as an AoE damage mitigator. Non-direct damage dealing buffs and debuffs. The following sets of buffs and debuffs are all about damaging the opponent. Let's start with the buffs. In this category we have Reflect Damage and Counterattack. Reflect Damage will return a percentage of the incoming damage to the attacker. This will count as a hit while not triggering counterattack. In Fire Knights you can make use of it in order to damage the Fire Knight's shield. Counterattack lets the affected champion strike back at the attacker. This will only attack the A1 and deal 75% of the damage. Counterattack won't trigger multiple times on multi-hit skills, but rather at the end of the multi-hit skill. As a special note, team-wide counterattack is only available from 3 champions, 2 of them being legendary: Skullcrusher, Martyr, and Valkyrie. Now to the debuffs. Poison and poison sensitivity go hand in hand, with the latter being the only debuff affecting poison's damage. We have a minor and major version of poison. The minor one dealing 2.5% of max HP and the major 5%. These are 2 separate debuffs and don't replace each other like other buffs and debuffs. For poison in clan boss we have maximum damage values. Easy 20k damage per turn, normal 30k damage per turn, hard 40k damage per turn, from brutal onwards 50k damage per turn. Poison sensitivity increases the poison damage by 25 or 50% respectively. This will also affect the damage in clan boss. Currently the only champion in the game with this skill is Frozen Banshee. She applies the 25% version of this skill. HP burn is similar to poison, dealing a percentage of max HP as damage. However, it will deal this damage to the target and its allies. For HP burn this is 3% and can't be increased by other means. Unlike poison, only 1 HP burn can be active on a single champion at one time. If multiple champions are affected by this debuff, however, they will all work together and apply their full damage. HP burns have a damage cap which differs depending on the applying champion's rarity. Rare champions deal a maximum of 50k per turn, while epics and legendaries are kept at 75k per turn. The last non-direct damage dealing debuff is Bomb. Bombs deal defense ignoring damage when they expire. A champion can be affected by multiple bomb debuffs at once. The damage scales with the stat mentioned in the skill description. This is usually attack. Currently the uncommon Lemur is the only champion who scales bombs with HP in addition to the attack scaling. Crowd controlling debuffs. In this category I wanted to make a clear distinction between CC which affects cooldowns and those which don't. Non-cooldown affecting crowd control. Provoke forces the affected champion to only use its default skill to attack the provoker. This has no effect on the cooldowns of any active skills. Block cooldown skills will let the affected champion choose their target, but similar to provoke only make use of their default skill. Also, this debuff has no effect on the cooldowns of any active skills. Cooldown affecting crowd control debuffs. Sleep makes the target unable to act for its duration. Any incoming damage will remove this debuff. Cooldowns are not refreshed while sleep is active. Stun will completely immobilize its target. Damage will be applied as normal without removing the debuff. Cooldowns are not refreshed while stun is active. Freeze will also hinder the target from acting. Cooldowns are not refreshed while freeze is applied. Champions under this debuff will only receive 75% of incoming damage. Fear and True Fear are the only chance-based crowd control debuffs. Both have a 50% chance to trigger. When triggered, the affected champion will lose their turn and the skill used will not activate. True Fear will also put the attempted skill on its full cooldown. And that's all about buffs and debuffs. I hope you enjoyed the video, as it was a lot of fun for me producing it. While making it, I tried to make sure all information is accurate. If you like this content, why not consider subscribing? See you in the next one, and until then, peace out.